After 5 months, Wales have a new head coach. It is Steve Tandy, finally taking over from Warren Gatland. Matt Sherritt's long national nightmare is over. He is free. And Steve Tandy is the new Wales coach. How are we feeling about this?
First and foremost, it's nice to have a bit of clarity on the men's team and the direction that they're heading in and what they want to do a bit. Because we've been left in limbo on a lot of things. And this was kind of the headline amongst them, was we don't know who's going to be the coach. The main story of this is, congrats, Matt Sherritt. I'm really happy for you that you don't have to do that anymore. I'm absolutely made up that you can now just go back and just like do your day job in Cardiff.
Do your 9 to 5 in Cardiff.
Yeah. Rather than...
No, tell Mose and Grady, no, just run straight.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, it's day job.
Rather than having to do all of that. And we don't know entirely what Tandy's going to do with his coaching staff, whether he's going to rip bits of it up, whether he's going to keep most of it the same as it was in the summer for Wales. We don't know. They've not confirmed that just yet. But, yeah, as I say, to start with, glad to just have some news. That's something.
Yeah.
And in terms of the appointment of Tandy itself, I think he was kind of the favourite for a while to take the job. And
he was reportedly second choice when Warren Gatland came back.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And I've seen a lot of kind of negative comments about this, saying like, this is a rubbish appointment, because I think a lot of people kind of have it in their minds the back end of his Ospreys days, which is something we'll probably come on to in a bit, and the fact that he's not had a head coach job at a high level since then. And I get that, but also at the same time, I struggle to believe that there was a better name for this than him. I struggle to believe there was somebody better who was available, because as Matt Sherritt has pointed out, right, there is a bit of a negative connotation around Wales men and taking that job that I think a lot of coaches who aren't Welsh will have seen that as, it's going to make my stock fall, coaching Wales, because they're in a bottomless pit at the moment as a team and as a country in rugby. So having someone like Tandy, who's quite experienced, willing to take this role, is a good thing, you know?
Yeah. You look at the options, to pick up on that first before we get into Tandy himself, right?
Yeah.
That Steve Tandy was always the front runner. He was always his favourite. Simon Easterby was the other name that came up. Obviously, he lives in Wales, has been involved, currently on the Lions tour. He was apparently the other name in the hat in the later stages. He was not, during his period as a head coach, particularly successful at the Scarlets, right? There's a period where Tandy and Easterby were both head coaches at Regions, and Tandy was more successful during that period by some way, I'd say.
Sure.
Without having checked Easterby stats necessarily. But it felt very much that, looking back on them. And so you throw those two in the ring. The other name that kept coming up in the last few weeks was Jake White, after he was let go by the Bulls. A lot of people brought that up. Jake White once said that the biggest regret of his career was turning down the Wales job before Gatland got it, that he was the first choice, Gatland was second. Obviously that worked out well for Gatland, but Jake White said the biggest regret of his career was turning that down.
Yeah.
And he wished he'd gone and taken it and, you know, basically gone on to have the career Warren Gatland did.
Yeah.
But I don't think Jake White would have been a good fit for this Welsh team.
No.
I think we saw with Warren Gatland what happens when a coach with perhaps some old school ways of thinking and playing the game and quite a limited approach from a game plan point of view comes in and works with this group of Welsh players. And Jake White would have just been another shot at Gatland.
I feel like he would have tried to get Wales to play like the Bulls or someone, and it just wouldn't have really worked or made any sense.
And considering some of the things Jake White said in the press over the last couple of years, right? If Gatland's coming out saying the players are too woke, I worry what Jake White would make of them.
Yeah.
So I think Jake White would have been a bad fit for this Welsh team.
Agreed.
I don't think and his CV has never been rebuilding teams, has never been getting the most out of young players.
Yeah.
I don't think he was a good option. I think Tandy's a better option than Simon Easterby, frankly. I know he obviously had a solid Six Nations with Ireland as head coach. And the other thing with both of these coaches, right, is coaches do improve. And people go like, oh, well, Steve Tandy, when he was let go by the Ospreys, had a bad season 8 years ago. And don't imagine he can't have improved in the meantime.
Yeah, like he will have learned some stuff from that and since then. And working in a high performance environment, coaching with the Scottish national men's team as well. Like that's pretty damn good experience for him.
Yeah. And so, look, I think there were probably a few other options in the running, but I don't know if there are many better than Steve Tandy.
Yeah,
I think it was probably quite a short list of guys they could realistically get, and Tandy probably was the standout contender in there, right? In terms of if you want a Welsh coach, and he's the first Welsh coach since 2007, So in almost 20 years to be head coach of Wales, if you discount the Rob Howley and Rob McBride as interim coaches. So that's significant as well. But I think if you're looking at a Welsh coach as someone that will take the job, right, the contenders there are Steve Tandy as the most successful currently working Welsh coach. And then you've got someone like Mark Jones or Dwayne Peel or Matt Sherritt himself. Matt Sherritt doesn't want to do it, and I don't think...
He's made that very clear.
Yes. Dwayne Peel and Mark Jones... Dwayne Peel's been way too hit and miss.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be really reliant on who he gets around him.
And he's required a long time for the Scarlets to persist with him before he started to get some results.
Yeah.
So I don't think that the Welsh rugby public would have that level of patience.
Mark Jones sort of the opposite. Like he's had some very good success early on, but we haven't seen enough of him, right?
Yeah.
Like he's had one season as a head coach.
He's a bit of an unknown quantity as a head coach at this point, isn't he?
So I think Tandy's the option. To talk about Steve Tandy then, right? People that haven't been aware, I have followed Steve Tandy's career very closely for quite a long time.
Yeah.
People remember the first Squid Rugby video was about Steve Tandy. Like,
Yep.
It's kind of a big full circle moment, and it's obviously going to lead to the last Squid Rugby video, which is Wales winning the World Cup under Steve Tandy.
Yeah.
At which point I will probably just die spontaneously.
Do you think he's going to last 17 years as well, like Gatland?
Let's park that one. So, Steve Tandy, right, was an open side flanker for the Ospreys and Bridgend, obviously from Bridgend. Played over 100 games for the Ospreys over quite a long period, never won a Welsh cap. Was called into the training squad once, but never won a cap. But very reliable servant, was kind of understudy to Marty Holler for a long time.
Yeah.
Then Justin Tipperick came through and was initially kind of like his mentor figure. Then went off to coach Tondy, his local club. They won back-to-back promotions, I think, while he was still playing, as he was head coach there. Was instantly seen as like, this guy is like the best up-and-coming coach we've had in a long time.
Yeah.
Retired early in order to coach Bridgend in the Welsh Premiership. They had, I think, an unbeaten run in his first season in charge there. He then, mid-season, the Ospreys, who at the time were coached by Sean Holly and Scott Johnson, the Ospreys had that period where they were known as the Galacticos era, right? Where the team they had was ridiculous. Jerry Collins, Tommy Bowe, Shane Williams, Alan Jones, Adam Jones, Marty Holler mentioned, Philo Tia, Duncan Jones,
Ricky
Paul
January
James.
for a bit, Mike Phillips, a young Dan Bigger, James Hook,
Lee Burns,
the
Andrew
names
Bishop,
they have are crazy, Nicky Walker.
Yeah, it was the strongest squad a Welsh team's ever had, right?
By a distance, I'd say.
Yeah.
Well, not the Scarlets 2018 Pro 14 winning team.
But I think there was more depth in that Ospreys squad, and there was more stardust.
Agreed. But that's the next closest thing.
Yeah.
And after that, there's probably a lot of daylight
Agreed.
to find the next best.
So that squad never made it beyond the quarterfinals in Europe, and they won one league title during the period where they were full of Galacticos.
Such a waste.
Yeah.
Such a waste.
It
They
is-
should have made a European final at least, if not won it. Like, with
Honestly,
that squad.
one of the biggest
They were
wastes of potential
butchered by
ever.
that coaching team.
Yeah. Who did just a very bulk standard job with them, and were just kind of getting very average results out of an outstanding squad.
Yeah.
They then fire them after they lose home and away to Saracens, who at the time were still on the rise. Like, it was still that kind of up-and-coming Saracens team before they became the team that won several league titles. Very young Owen Farrell before he had caps, was man of the match in one of those games. They then fire them mid-season. They bring Steve Tandy in as a caretaker coach, assuming he'll be there for about 3 or 4 weeks whilst they find someone else, potentially to the end of the season, but no more than that. They then go on and win, I think, every single game for the rest of the season and win the league.
They hit some phenomenal form.
Yeah.
And the thing was, even when Steve Tandy came in, the board were quite transparent in, this guy hasn't done much head coaching at this point.
Yeah.
Certainly not at this level. Just persist with him. He's just here as an interim.
Yeah.
And he smashed it out the park.
Yeah.
He turned that Ospreys team back into... Well, he restored a bit of pride, I think it was, in that he clearly got the team into a point where they wanted to play for each other, and he got them playing, even if a slightly simplified but an entertaining brand of rugby that really, really worked for them. And it won them a few games on the trot. And obviously at that point, when you've been through something as a squad and you've slightly reinvented yourself and you started winning games off the back of it, it brings you even tighter.
Yeah. He notoriously came in, looked at the game plan they had up on the wall, looked at their set structures, and went, what the hell are we doing? This is way too complicated.
Yeah.
Stripped it right back, took out all the unnecessary elements, and they improved immensely. Because he had a kind of very nuts and bolts approach to the game. Took it back And yeah, the defence increased enormously. And then beyond that, yeah, their attack was fantastic. And they played a much more, as you say, stripped back, but like expansive and ambitious.
And it
style
got
of
the
rugby.
best out of the star players they did have.
Yeah.
And even towards the end of that season, they had a lot of injuries and unavailability. People with internationals and so on. Like, there's a lot of reasons why those players were largely unavailable, and yet still that didn't weaken or hamper the squad very much.
Yeah. So they built towards it. They won the league that year.
Yeah.
Beat Leinster in the final, late Dan Bigger penalty. One of the best moments of my rugby watching life.
Yeah.
And then the following couple of seasons, the Ospreys are consistently competitive, despite the fact in one go they lost the season before. Jerry Collins, Tommy Bowe, Mike Phillips, Marty Holler, Nicky Walker, Ryan Jones, like Ryan Beveridge, Confortability really came in after the Tandy era, but like they lost half their squad in one go.
Yeah.
They lost huge amounts of those star names went at once, and Tandy basically rebuilt them almost overnight into a better team than they had been before when they had those names, or at least like they achieved about equal results, right? They'll finish consistently around third or second in the league for the first few years. And then we reach about 2017, having been consistently about fourth in the league and consistently qualifying for Europe and so on. Making a fist of it, but never reaching another quarterfinal.
Yeah.
Always having a decent run, but never quite making or ending the Challenge Cup and doing well down there and so on. They then get to 2017, right? And they had a struggling season the season before, but late half of it rebuilt. I got into 2017-18, and they were on absolute fire. And they were top of the league at Christmas. I think they'd won all but one game. They'd won most of those with bonus points. And they went on in that January to become the first team in either the Challenge or Champions Cup in the old format to get bonus point wins in every single game, home or away. They were on absolute fire. They were beating everyone comprehensively, everyone comfortably. And then they come back from the Six Nations break, and whereas at a mid-Six Nations, they beat Ireland, but sort of otherwise it wasn't brilliant.
Sure.
They come back, and we then have a game where they rest the big players because they're playing Stade Francais, a team who hadn't won away from home in 2 years, I think, at the time. They're playing them in the quarterfinals of Europe. They're the favourite for the whole competition at this point. And this is the Challenge Cup, right?
Yeah.
They're playing Benetton away the week before. They rest a lot of the bigger name players. They end up losing that game. The kind of vibes rankle a bit. And the following week against Stade, they just capitulate. And they just fall apart.
Yeah.
And the vibes go off so quickly. And they just go completely downhill. They start losing every game. They eventually do still scrape into the playoffs, having been top by about 8-9 points at Christmas. They just about scrape in fourth, lose to Leinster in the semi-finals, and slide apart. The following season, the Ospreys go on to, from having been top at Christmas, they go on to be, if you'd done a combined table of the top 14 in the Premiership and the URC, or the Pro 12, Pro 14 as it was at the time, they would have been the bottom side out of those combined sides. Like, they won one game all season. Ali Davis charging a late drop goal attempt with his face to beat Ulster, and that was it. They went downhill so quickly. He got fired after they lost to Claremont in Europe. Alan Clark, their defence coach, comes in after they said, we're going to take a worldwide search, leave no stone unturned, and they pointed the guy in the next room over.
And things got worse. So worse.
The vibes rankled. Things got worse. Things kind of went downhill.
No one enjoyed being at the Ospreys at that time.
And then
players were leaving left, right, and centre.
Matt Sherritt takes over briefly, and things get worse still. Toby Biff comes in, things rebuild. We get to the state we are now. Fine. We'll leave that for side. But the point is, people only remember the last year of Steve Tandy because it was miserable and it was awful, and the Ospreys were the worst team in major European rugby.
Yeah.
And that was terrible. But they forget that there were two peaks there, right? And a team consistently with a weaker squad than they had been and had, and than, frankly, quite a lot of other teams in the league had. They were consistently competitive.
And one of them, let's not forget, was in a bit of a rebuild, like Wales national team are now. One of them was in a bit of a rebuild. Granted, they had better players, like relative to the competition they were playing in, but it does give you a little bit of hope that is something they could do, that they're in a similar position where it's like, we know we have potential to be a good team because we're a rugby mad nation, or so people tell us all the time. we should be turning these into results, and we're not. Why aren't we? It's a very similar situation to the one that Tandy found himself in when he was just thrust into the Ospreys job, just willy-nilly.
This Wales team, right, is, I think, quite comparable to the Ospreys team he took over.
Yeah.
Which is, they have ostensibly weaker, smaller name players, should we say, than the generation that was there before.
Sure.
And yet Tandy went on to achieve pretty much identical results with a much younger team, right? And yet some of those young names were Rhys Webb and Dan Biggar, you know. But there's still the likes of Eli Walker and Hanno Dirksen who didn't really have glittering international careers, right? And like a lot of that was down to injuries for both of them.
Yeah.
But built a lot of like young players up. The likes of Ben John, who's a friend of the channel, great guy. But like a lot of these players who were good regional players, I managed to get the most out of them consistently.
Yeah.
So I think there is something there. He then had a year out of coaching, then went to the Waratahs in New South Wales and did a brilliant job as their defence coach, like transforming the defence overnight. Scotland picked him up, and from there, kind of the rest is history. He's done a brilliant job with Scotland. He's really allowed that team to punch above their weight. Gregor Townsend's spoken so heavily of how much value. Yeah, then goes on the Lions tour as defence coach in 2021 and does a very good job again. Like the Springboks, the Springboks don't break down the defence over the Test series, right? The tries they do score is a chip kick on the try line, and then mauls and drive overs and so on.
Yeah. With that in mind, then, I'm quite interested about what specifically, like from a rugby perspective, he's going to bring to this Wales team. Because if you think of his time as Scotland defence coach, the game of rugby evolved quite a lot in that time. And so the role of a defence coach evolved quite a lot in that time. When he first took over, it wasn't long into that era where people realised that you don't have to choose to be a rush defence or a blitz defence or a drift defence or whatever. That actually you can do both depending on where you are on the pitch. And he was very, very good at that. Where his Scotland team kind of just before he got on the Lions tour, they were very, very good at just covering a lot of ground. That just, if they were in stressed scenarios where oppositions had overlaps, they were very, very good on that. He put a lot on Chris Harris, who was at the time one of the best defensive centres in the world. And so it was really like maxed out on defence, his kind of stats, as it were.
I have a note on this, right?
Yeah.
Tandy was the coach who brought Owen Watkins as an 18-year-old, brought him in. I think we might see this as the start of Owen Watkins' like international renaissance.
Yeah.
Because he was obviously fantastic for us in those early days, sort of 2018-19. Then over the PVAC era, PVAC really mismanaged him. And then he was playing in an Ospreys team that was losing all the time. Booth rebuilt him and really had him focus on his defence. And last season, before he did his ACL, I thought he was outstanding. Defensively, he's so good. And he feels like the mould of centre that Tandy wants. And if I'm to look at what players will we see come in and benefit from this, I think I can see Owen Watkin being like a brilliant established international centre. I can see him having kind of similar to Gael Fickou with France when Sean Edwards came in.
Yeah, I get that.
Right? Of like, Fickou was very up and down. He had 50 caps. Everyone's like, is he any good? I don't know. And then suddenly in comes Sean Edwards, who goes like, no, this is how I want you to play. And he went, brilliant. And suddenly he was an excellent international player. I think we might see that with Owen Watkin.
Owen Watkin's one of those players that when you put him with an intelligent and fast other midfielder, he is outstanding.
Yeah.
If you put him with somebody who is only one of those two things, then he struggles. Like when they put him with Mason Grady last summer, he really struggled. But when you put him with somebody a bit better, like, I don't know, when he's played with Jonathan Davis in Hampden Parks in the past, I think he's been brilliant.
The thing with Mason Grady at 12 is like, you as the 13 are left playing both centre positions defensively.
Yeah.
So it's almost impossible to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's a few players like that. I think Dan Edwards will fit his system much better of like a controlling 10, which he likes.
I also think from a sheer just like starting a clean slate perspective, I think he'll put a lot on Dan Edwards' shoulders. Yeah. And I think that's a good thing to do.
Yeah. Which would be great if the W cut his region and so he doesn't get any game time and having to share Team Costello. That'd be, really great. But yeah, I think there's a few players that really benefit from this. I think we're going to see him play a much more stripped back style of rugby, a more simplified style of rugby, but not as simplified as Gatlin did.
Yeah.
I think there will be more detail. I'm also eager to know what he's learnt from Gregor Townsend.
Yeah.
Because he's been working under one of the best
That's kind of the exciting bit.
Coaches.
Yeah, because Townsend is one of the most innovative and just enjoyable attack coaches. And the thing about Townsend Scotland is they very rarely for non-Finn Russell reasons, stray away from like the game plan.
Yeah.
That they are very, very strict on this is how we like to attack. We will keep doing this.
Yeah.
And the only person who's kind of given a license to tear up the playbook is Finn.
Yeah.
And I wonder if it'll be a similar thing, that maybe he'll let Thomas Williams be that guy who can kind of go, no, we'll go off script a little bit, but everybody else, like, trust me on this kind of thing. Again, thinking about his defence, when he went on the Lions tour in 2021 as defence coach, he defended that quite differently to how he did with Scotland. He instead went, no, we have to really take it to the Springboks pack, and we have to like constantly fly at them and put them under loads of pressure all the time and be really like abrasive and like whack them hard. And I think he was a lot more aggressive and physical than he was potentially with Scotland. And so, to be honest, from a Welsh perspective, that gives me kind of hope that he's really experienced at coaching different kinds of defence.
Yeah.
And it's unclear what he's going to do, as I say, with his coaching staff. But like, for instance, under Gatland 2.0, with no Sean Edwards available, sadly, they went with Mike Forshaw, who kind of went for a kind of more slow, contained style defence, which was, you could describe it as quite negative, the way of doing it. It's a way of, we'll just try and slow them down and limit them so we can then just like wait until they drop the ball and make an error. And don't get me wrong, it worked in the 23 World Cup.
Yeah.
And I think teams then kind of figured it out and just went, right, how can we speed the ball up against these and take Jack Morgan out of the game?
I also think that style of defence was so exhausting that like you physically couldn't do it unless you had a camp preparing you to run it for
You need
5,
a really
6 games.
fit pack to be able to do that, and Wales did
to do it
not have
effectively.
that.
And Wales instead were doing it quite badly when they got,
But as I say, I trust that Tandy will look at the Welsh personnel and will go, brilliant, this is the kind of defence we're going to go for. I don't know what kind of defence that will be, but I trust that he will pick the right kind.
Yeah.
Whether he just defends himself or gets somebody else to do it.
Whether he is defence coach or whether he brings someone else in. He was defence coach at Ospreys for a long time himself, for Brad Davis the Australian, who went on to work with Eddie Jones when he was with Australia, and with England briefly.
Yeah.
So, a reasonable pedigree guy. But like for a long time, he was the defence coach himself, even when he was a head coach.
Yeah.
And it was only when things started to falter because he had too much on his plate, basically, that they changed that. So I wonder if that'll be the case. We don't know who his assistant is going to be yet, but there was talk of Danny Wilson coming in as assistant forwards coach to kind of aid him alongside. There was talk of Matt Sherritt continuing as attack coach, which is, I don't know. I don't know if he'll want to do that.
Want it.
And I also don't know if he's the best fit.
Yeah. I think he's seen the environment now and he really isn't keen.
Yeah.
That's the vibe I get.
But if they can hopefully slowly build out a group, that'll be excellent. I think there's reason to be optimistic. I think Wales will be better under Tandy than they have been under Gatland or Sherritt.
Yeah.
Whether that'll be enough, I don't know.
Yeah. I'd imagine as well, thinking of that, Adam Jones will probably stick around because he said this is his dream job.
Yeah.
In Adam we trust, of course.
I've heard Adam's very eager to stick around.
Yeah. It's hard to tell from a results perspective, kind of what we should expect or what we should hope for, what we should hang our hats on, because at the moment, like we've just come off the back of literally the first men's win since the last World Cup, and we're all delighted with that, right? However, you do have to start a clean slate, because by the autumn, we will have forgotten about that to an extent.
The other thing is, right, this autumn, the games do take place in November. The W's consultation on the regions is due to take place in October, or be announced in October, right?
Yeah.
So it may be that his first game takes place the week after they announce they're going down to 2 regions.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the mood in that
lost
camp?
their jobs.
Can you imagine the mood in like yes, someone like Jack Morgan or Derry Lake will find another club. That's fine.
Sure.
Both of them had offers over the last year. They'll find another club, right?
But also,
will a player like James Ratty find a new club right away?
This isn't New Zealand. This is Wales.
Yeah.
We're on about here. We've not got rugby players just falling out of our ears like they do in South Africa.
And that's like,
England
sorry to pull out, like, I don't mean to pull out James Ratty. It's just like those players, right, who are consistently the 23 for their regions, hit there with the Dragons.
Don't be stressed about
who are getting in there. Exactly.
Like job security.
Yeah.
And it's not because they're not good enough players, because they definitely are.
So that's an almost impossible job for him to deal with week 1, right? So he's got to oversee that and manage that kind of mood shift in camp for his first few days in charge. Potentially also, he's then dealing with having a much smaller player pool to work with than any other Welsh coach in the past has ever had.
Yeah.
He's looking at his region being cut, potentially, and the Dragons as well, and that leaving him with a fraction of the players, a fraction of the time in the saddle. Like, as I mentioned in the previous video, but like Dan Edwards would not have 2,000 minutes under his belt if there were 2 regions. Like, he would have played at best half that with Costello also competing for that shirt.
Sure.
And those minutes are valuable. And, you know, the extra forwards and so on that you have are valuable as well as the 10s. And, like, I don't know. I think there's a chance that Welsh Rugby is about to implode. I feel like this Tandy thing, right? I think he is the best point we could have made. However, I come back to every decision the W seems to be making at the minute feels like austerity. It feels like they are ripping things up in order to survive, and there's nothing being built in order to thrive and build towards a brighter and better future, right? And with Steve Tandy, the results will be better, but I still think, are we realistically looking at him winning the Six Nations over the next 5 years?
Probably not.
Don't think
but
so.
I think, again, you have to kind of manage your
I
expectations.
think there might be a couple of very good results in here.
Yeah.
And he might be able to build something longer term.
I honestly think that's where I'll set the bar.
I think, yeah, with the
develop players, get a couple of wins,
and that will
at
be
this point.
Fine. But, like,
and then if he gets there, we can move the goalposts.
I worry the W in the meantime is going to do like genuine permanent damage that could last 50 years in the next like 12 months. I think that's coming. I think there's a very good chance that they do permanent damage to the union.
Some of it's already happened.
And like,
arguably most of it.
This announcement was made like half an hour after the under-20s were some of the under-20s were arrested for disrupting a pride parade in Italy. Like, drunkenly, violently disrupting,
they have
smashing
still
stuff up.
not acknowledged that to the point. At time of recording, they've still not acknowledged.
So, like, there's scandal after scandal in Welsh rugby right now, and everything is incredibly bleak.
Yeah.
So we got some, like, passably good news. I'm optimistic about Steve Tandy. I'm happy to give him my support. I think a lot of people are moaning. I'm not with that. It's more the mood in Welsh rugby that leads me to be pessimistic.
That's
like,
it.
It's hard to get too caught up in anything when like everything is austerity, everything is cut this back. Look at this. Let's get rid of this.
It's default to moan about the WAU.
Yeah.
Like for every decision they make, and I think that Steve Tandy has a target on his back for that reason.
Yeah.
I think it's habit. People are used to moaning about everything in Welsh rugby, and so that's.
I mean, I've heard rumours that as well as a big arrival here, there's a big departure potentially coming in the next week. So. We'll potentially some point anyway. So we'll see where these things go. But I don't know, man.
It's a bleak note to end things.
I wanted to go into this and be like, no, like, you know, I like Steve Tandy.
Yeah.
I think he's a much better coach than people give him credit for. I've always been a big fan of him, always rooted for him. And I think he'll do a great job as Wales coach.
I'm looking forward to seeing how he does.
I'm very happy and optimistic about this. And yeah, it's hard to talk about Welsh rugby for half an hour and not end up in like misery and not end up in dread.
The thing is, right, again, who else could we have got?
Yeah.
Right? It's like, realistically, would have wanted
Razzie's
the
out of
job.
contract.
Yeah, that's true. But who would have wanted that job?
Yeah.
You know? And at the same time, again, with Gatland 2.0, could things get any worse? I just feel like we're not in a position where we can be too picky about this. And I think that Steve Tandy is one of the better names that we could have hoped
I think
for. And he's
arguably
Welsh,
Tandy
which is
should have
nice.
taken over after the World Cup.
Yeah.
I remember at the time thinking that Gatland was the right appointment short term, but like long term is going to work anyway much worse than I ever anticipated.
It's the first time in the time that we've been watching where Wales have had a full-time head coach who is Welsh.
Yeah.
Which is quite nice.
That's cool.
You know, it's quite a cool new thing for us. It's the first one since Gareth Jenkins in 2007. So that's quite exciting to see a proud Welshman getting the chance. And the fact he never played for Wales and now he gets to be the head coach, like that's cool for him from his perspective. So I'm looking forward to that. Okay, we've said some bleak stuff here.
Yeah.
I just want to remind you about some of the good news that's come out of Welsh rugby recently, which we didn't.
It's good news.
Yeah, we didn't give it any time. We didn't go over it on the channel.
Is this?
Alex Callender
Yes.
is the captain, and so is Kate Williams ahead of the World Cup, and that is great news.
It's great news.
So I'm going to leave that positive note there. 'cause we
Objectively
love Al
brilliant
Cal.
news. And Kate Williams.
Yeah.
Both of them brilliant. Both of them great leaders. So excited to see both of them in that role. It's about time.
Yeah, Wales. Just to remind everybody who's a Welsh fan, it's not all bleak. Wales have the greatest rugby player of all time, captaining them into the World Cup later this year.
Kieran Williams playing for the women now.
Yes, Kay Williams.
Yeah.